We're back to my vinyl collection series. This is part 21, and we're just about to finish up the G's and start the H's within this part of my vinyl collection. And the only other thing to talk about here is what's going to be playing in the background, which is going to be Nature and Organization with Beauty Reaps, The Blood of Solitude. Man, this is one hell of a score, as it's arguably one of the greatest neo-folk albums ever made. And it mainly has to do with the fact that there are just so many respected and well-regarded neo-folk artists within this album right here. You have David Tibet from Current 93, Douglas Pierce from Death in June, along with Michael Casmore is also part of this as well. He kind of does all the production stuff, and he kind of pretty much wrote most of this album as well. It is just one hell of an album that not only is this one of the best neo-folk albums I've ever heard, it's honestly one of the best albums I've heard in general within music itself. Part 21 is actually going to start off with the last band within my collection that starts with G. And it's a black metal band out of Sweden, which I'm probably going to butcher the name of this, but this is Grifteskymfning. Probably saying that very wrong. This is their latest album from 2020, and if memory serves me right, they actually released 2 albums last year, but this is the one that I got from them. And let me tell you guys, it took forever for this vinyl copy right here to get within my hands, because Merchant of Death has been severely slacking, and it's not just me who's been complaining about them. I'm seeing a lot of people say that they waited like 6-7 months for their orders to come within the mail. And I remember putting the pre-order in for this like at the beginning of 2020, and I didn't get it until like the end of the summer in 2020. So that's like, again, another 6 to 7 month wait. So I've kind of just given up with Merchant of Death at this point, because it seems like either they're on some type of hiatus, they're going through some type of shipping issues that is just beyond out of their control or something. I don't know, but that's just insane of waiting that long for a record. But anyway, as for this album right here musically, as I stated, it's a black metal band that it's basically doing the suit and tie style that you would want for black metal. The only standout features I would say is that the keyboards within this album remind me a bit of Emperors in the Night Side Eclipse, but the guitar riffs are very, fierce and ferocious. That really resembles that of something out of like Immortals, like Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism. It kind of feels like both those albums are blended quite well within this. And yeah, this is a really good black metal album that I definitely recommend checking out if you're a black metal fan. As for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, spot glossed as shit, because of, like always, Darker Than Black has an obsession with doing this. It also comes on a gatefold with lyrics inside. As for the LP variant, it's the special edition that comes on this kind of like white marble looking type of color. As of now, we have reached the next letter within my vinyl collection, and that is now going to be H. And we kick off the H's with Hail Spirit Noir. This is their album Mayhem in Blue. These guys are a progressive black metal band out of Greece, I believe. And when it comes to the blends between progressive metal and black metal, I'm really not a fan of it. It's just something that doesn't really sit right with me. Maybe it's the fact that I've never been crazy for progressive music of any kind to begin with. And there's something about this album, it doesn't really kind of play with the cliches all that much. There's just a lot of great hooks within this album. The keyboard work makes it fun. And I guess to me, what this album sounds like overall, it's like the black metal version of Ghost in some type of way, especially since there's just so much usage of synthesizers and keyboards on here. It's like as if Infestissima was a black metal album, because the choir's on here too. Makes this album fun. It's not like pretentious progressive black metal. It's like fun progressive black metal, which is usually something I wouldn't say about an album that blends these styles together. As for the other albums by Hail Spirit Noir, not really crazy for it. I checked out their latest album, and again, it just doesn't sit right with me. But for some reason, Mayhem in Blue, this is a really fun album that I would recommend. But that doesn't really have much weight to it because, again, I'm not really crazy for anything progressive related to begin with. But anyway, it's pretty easy to get. I got my copy on Discogs for like 15 bucks, so if you want to get it there. As for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with track listings and band photo, and just comes on a standard black vinyl. Up next is the debut EP release by Hajduk. Hajduk is a one-man raw black metal project based out of Bulgaria, out of all places. And while this album, songwriting-wise, is doing literally nothing new for the raw black metal sound, the standout feature, surprisingly, is that it doesn't rely so much on it just being so raw, necro, and harsh to win you over. There's like... It just feels very emotive for a raw black metal release, that there's just a lot of genuine pride kind of being put into this album, especially how the riffs are played out, that it really won me over quite a bit with this band. And it's definitely one of those like newer raw black metal bands to check out because, again, as I stated, it doesn't rely so much on it being so raw, necro, and harsh, and the songwriting just feels just like there's like actual thought being put into this. But other than that, this is the only thing I have by this band as of yet, because this LP pressing right here and basically everything else put out by Hajduk is put out through Not Cult Productions, I think. And that's one of those distros that is like, you know, relying a lot on hype. They usually sell out within 5 minutes. And to be honest with you guys, I'm really done just overall in general with keeping up with distros like that, because you know, the whole like refreshing the browser every 5 minutes to get a record, it's not worth my time anymore. Like, I get the fact that when you like a record, you'll do anything to get it. I get that. I'm very guilty of it. But after all these years, I'm just really fucking sick of it, to be honest with you, which is to why this is the only thing I have by this band, because how I was able to get it was my friend told me about it, and I was just at the right place at the right time to grab it before it sold out. And it's definitely worthy of checking out, but all the other releases are, for me at least, impossible to get. Also as well too, with the layout and packaging, besides the album artwork, which I think is really cool looking, the rest of it is just complete dog shit, because again, I hate distros and labels that do this. Because the jacket is in one of these over-glorified cardboard paper fold-out jackets. Hate this shit with a passion. Standard black vinyl, and comes with an insert sheet with artwork and the band logo and track listings on the other side. Proceeding onwards to Harakiri For The Sky. This is their third full-length album, Trauma, my personal favorite within their discography. These guys are I guess you could call it post-black metal band based out of Austria. And how I've always looked at Harakiri For The Sky is that essentially they are what it would be like if you had a post-rock band play, you know, the cliches of the genre, but it was fueled by extreme metal. It's essentially what Harakiri For The Sky is. And this stuff is fantastic. The track on here, Funeral Dreams, that song is so incredible because it's like a perfect blend of being pretty and aggressive at the same time. And most bands kind of like fall on either side, and it kind of like disrupts the idea of blending black metal with shoegaze and the post-rock, post-hardcore, you know, you get the whole gist of it. They found the sweet spot, and Funeral Dreams, in my personal view, is the perfect 50-50 of the genres working cohesively together, and that song is so good. Other great tracks on here are Dry the River, Bury Me, Call in the Rain, and The Traces We Leave is another great track on here. Just overall, I don't think Harakiri For The Sky has ever done anything wrong. And they're very consistent too, because any of the they've done 5 full lengths as of right now. They roughly all range around the hour mark, and a lot of their tracks, really any track you check out by them, more than likely is going to be around the 10+ minute mark. And their songwriting stays consistent like that, and I feel like if you enjoy at least one aspect about them, you'll basically enjoy everything else by them, as they stay pretty much the same with it, only they kind of like play around with how they kind of assemble the subgenres of either being a post-hardcore band in some moments, a post-rock band in other moments, or a black metal band during other segments. But to me, they've just always been consistent. You can't go wrong with them. But best place to start out with is Trauma. Again, Funeral Dreams is the song that will more than likely sell you on their songwriting. As to where you can get this, pretty sure Art of Propaganda, the label they're signed to, still carries copies on their web store. I know they have a European distro along with an American distro, and both should still carry copies. As well too, their Bandcamp keeps this updated, so that's where I got my copy. So if you want it, check out either of those that I just mentioned. As for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with more artwork and track listings. Comes on a gatefold with the lyrics inside. Also includes an A2 poster of the album artwork. And the vinyl variant that I got comes on this split of both white and black. Another release I have by Harakiri For The Sky is the follow-up album, that being Arson. As I stated with Trauma, a lot of their albums are basically written the same. All the characteristics you would find in with Trauma, you'll more than likely find it with Arson, of the styles they play around with, how they lay out the tracks, the album again being around like the hour plus length mark, along with the fact that these tracks again are roughly 10 plus minutes long. The really only minor differences I'm hearing within this album particularly is that it's just a bit more aggressive, mainly because there's just more blast beats utilized within this album, and the vocalist just sounds a little bit angrier, but that's just really nitpicking. Just how I overall look at it, if you like one album by Harakiri For The Sky, you'll more than likely dig the other 4 albums that they released on top of it. As for this packaging and layout right here, this is actually the special edition hard cover of it, which I'm fairly certain still Art of Propaganda still carries this edition of it, so I'm surprised that it didn't sell out, because I'm kind of late to the party with this band. But yeah, other than that, as I stated, it's the special edition hardcover. Comes with like this foil print on both sides, looks really cool. The gatefold as well is has the records in that sleeve, which is kind of annoying, but the gatefold has the booklet stapled inside, so you have lyrics and artwork to go along with it. Vinyl is on black, so no bother showing you that, as again it's a pain in the ass to put back in with it. But yeah, the more, I guess, aggressive album within the catalog for Harakiri For The Sky. The last thing I have by Harakiri For The Sky is their latest album that was released back in February of this year. This is kind of like the super special edition of it, because I also got the box set, wooden box set version of it as well too. I'll show the contents of this in another video when I specifically talk about my box set collection. But I figured I'd talk about this album because originally I wanted to do an album review for this back in February, but I decided to pass up on it because these guys have been getting a lot of attention as of recently, as I think this is like their most successful selling album, as it's charted on a lot of billboards around Europe. So good for them that they're really selling a lot of, albums for the style of music that they play. But again, as I stated with the 2 previous albums, the characteristics and overall songwriting is again consistent, so there's not really any differences here. I mean, some standout tracks that I personally enjoy just for overall how they sound are Sing For The Damage We've Done. I love the outro for that track. Once Upon a Winter and Oceans Between Us. And what's another good one? Time Is a Ghost is a phenomenal outro for this album. As well too, the only other thing they're kind of like testing the waters with their sound is that there's a few more guest spots on this album. I know Niche is a part of one track on here, even though he really doesn't do anything other than his clean humming singing that I wish he did a little bit more than just that. Along with, I don't know her full name, but I believe her first name is Audrey, and she was a part of a few albums for Pest Noir. and kind of like her clean operatic like singing comes in and out within this album, which is really neat. But again, other than that, songwriting is basically the same. As for the layout and packaging for this album, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings, comes on a gatefold, and the LP variant comes on semi-translucent blood red vinyl. I know the box sets right now are sold out, but the standard editions again are still available on Art of Propaganda. Oh damn. So this band right here is one of the heavy hitters within the Ukrainian black metal scene, and that would be Hate Force, with the most ancient ones. My personal favorite within the Hate Force discography. And while I don't have many albums by Hate Force within my collection, mainly because of the fact that I'm not really breaking my back to get them, as Osmos, the wonderful label that always keeps records in print, has been keeping the whole discography for Hate Force readily available on their distro, so at some point I'll get around to it. But for the most part, another reason why is that when I did my review for Hate Force with their latest album, I still stand by what I said, that a lot of their albums stand shoulder to shoulder with one another, that the songwriting is literally identical. Basically, one way you can describe this album right here, you can say the same exact thing for every other album by Hate Force, that you're going to have these dense, thick riffs that are very tremolo picked. You're going to have the vocals that are just very, heavy and brooding sounding, and the drumming is literally blast beats. I know it's a drum machine, but it's literally blast beats, and that's about it. And I think the overall approach for Hate Force is to be just as bleak and hateful as possible and nothing fancy. And I think because of that simplistic approach, it's why it's gotten such a die-hard fan base, all these years later. But the most ancient ones, just the riffs and overall tone to me just really clicks with me the most out of everything Hate Force has done. Along with the fact too, I'm really lucky that I got this, because as you can see with this album artwork, this is the first press right here, originally put out through Northern Heritage. Again, Osmos does the represses and they're still up. And I got this at a Newberry Comics for $15. It was one hell of a score. I don't know who sold this at a Newberry Comics out of all places, but Godspeed to that individual for selling a gem like this for you probably got $2 out of it from Newberry Comics. So for $15 to get a first press Hate Force record, hell fucking yes, I will pick that up. As for the layout and packaging, as you just saw, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings, single LP that just comes on a standard black vinyl. The only other record I have by Hate Force is the latest album that was released back in 2020, that being Hour of the Centaur. I'm still in disbelief that Hate Force actually did a new album, as so many people were convinced that Roman was more focused on his job along with being a part of Druk, that Hate Force just seemed to be in this indefinite hiatus, that it's been 15 some odd years since there was new material released for Hate Force. And I remember seeing the teaser tracks for this album and just being in complete disbelief and just being so eager to see when the album was going to be dropped. And again, even though it's been 15 years, I'm very happy to see that really nothing's changed about this band. I like the fact that Roman's just really kept this band very simplistic and right to its roots, with really nothing changing other than the production values that just a bit more beefed up. I would say the drumming on here doesn't feel so clunky. It's a bit sharpened up, but again, it's still 99% of it is blast beats. But the whole bleak, hateful atmosphere and tone that's kind of hypnotic and aggressive is still very much present with Hate Force. And I know this is the first press, and the only difference between the first press and the recent represses that Osmos has done, the first presses come with the 7-inch, that being Celestial Wanderer, which is just basically 2 bonus tracks for the album. I mean, really nothing to show you there. It just comes on a 7-inch, obviously. That's on silver. As for the layout and packaging for this right here, You have album artwork, backside with the track listings, along with the LP variant, that being on this silver gray vinyl, similar to that of the 7-inch I just showed. Next band is Haunting Depths. This is their full-length Death's Sacred Fire. As you can see, it's a Go to Warx release, but the selling point for me with this release was that it was co-released by Spectral Moon. And this is a really, really good distro and label that, although it doesn't do much, there's very limited releases under this label. It is just top-notch black metal that all the very few releases they've done is worthy of getting. And Haunting Depths, overall, it's pretty much suit and tie for the genre, but it's just executed really well. It's like raw black metal that's heavy, and that's really hard to come by. That's just very stripped down, aggressive, and straight to the point, and that's about it. And I feel like black metal fans would definitely enjoy it just because of its simplistic and straightforward approach. Other than that, as you could guess, since it's a Go to Warx release, it's sadly long gone sold out. Although Tortygard did do a CD pressing of this album, I'm pretty sure it's still available on Tortygard. Other than that, for the layout and packaging, I mean, you have front with album artwork, backside with the track listings, the Obi strip, and it's hand numbered. I got number 35. It doesn't say out of what, but I think it was limited to like 100 or 150 copies. Then I have Anna von Hausswolff. This is her 2015 full-length, The Miraculous. My God, I need to get more Anna von Hausswolff. It is a crime that this is the only record I own of hers as of right now. Her latest album, I can't think of the name of it right now. I know it's all like red with like a ghostly girl figure in the middle of it. That album is incredible. I need to get it because she basically did a doom metal album, and she is so good at writing music. Basically, how I look at Anna von Hausswolff is that she is the Scandinavian version of Chelsea Wolfe, basically. But I've always preferred Anna's vocals to Chelsea's vocals overall, as hers just feels... It kind of like fits the mood of how she tries to write like ambient music that also has, I guess, folk elements at times, rock elements at other times. And she is a absolute genius when it comes to synthesizers and using the pipe organs. That's really one of the standout features about her, and I would kill to see her live, but every chance I've gotten over the previous years, I was always either busy or it was just like she was just out of reach for my area. But Anna von Hausswolff, from what I've seen, she puts on incredible shows. But yeah, I need to step up my game because, as I just stated, The Miraculous is the only thing I own of hers as of yet. And this album is kind of like a slow burner, as it blends kind of like folk music and ambient music, both back and forth, that it's not really the best place to start. I mean, I found this at a record store as to why I bought this off a whim. But her latest album, I urge you to check out, especially if you're a metal fan, because it has a lot of doom metal with the guitar riff that is just so good. But other than that, for the layout and packaging for The Miraculous, you have album artwork, backside of the track listings, comes on a gatefold, double LP on plain black vinyl, but side D is etched. Alright, this album right here I feel like got internet famous. It has all this high praise and accolades because of the internet. The internet just gave this album just such high praise, and it's an incredible album that I feel like everyone should know because of the internet. And that would be Have a Nice Life with the debut album Death Consciousness. Dan Barrett is a genius, I feel like, when it comes to post-punk. I'm not really crazy for the subgenre. I have been kind of like working my way to adjust to its sound, and I've been finding bits and pieces within the style that I enjoy. But Death Consciousness by Have a Nice Life, Dan Barrett's work, has always won me over, even when I was just completely detested by just post-punk as a whole. And it's mainly because he adds so many other styles together with post-punk, because this album right here has elements of industrial, shoegaze, folk, post-rock, and just so much experimentation on here that it just expands far past just a post-punk album. and it's truly an incredible piece of music. I know Death Consciousness was originally like a release for Giles Corey, which was the project Dan Barrett was a part of previous to Have a Nice Life. But Have a Nice Life is basically like the more uplifting, not as dismal, dark, and depressing version of Giles Corey, essentially. And it still carries that melancholic vibe and mood that is just really infectious, I feel like, regardless of any track you listen to. The overall melancholic vibe never seems to evaporate. Because tracks on here like The Eternal Worm Devours Connecticut is my personal favorite track. Waiting for Black Metal Records to come in the mail is like the fan favorite just because of the fucking song title. Other great tracks, The Future, I Don't Love, Earth Mover is an incredible outro within this album. And Who Would Leave Their Son Out in the Sun is another standout track. Overall, just a phenomenal album that all you guys should know. As to where you can get this, I'm pretty sure the Flenser has been keeping this vinyl in print because they've been doing represses non-stop. So if it is sold out, I recommend at least checking up on the Flenser every now and once so often because they've been keeping it going with represses. As for the layout and packaging with this album, you have album artwork, backside with the same artwork, but the track listings are on the top. Comes on a gatefold, as well too a booklet with all notes and kind of like a story to go along with the album, which is quite interesting. And this LP variant comes on semi-translucent blue, limited to 1,000 copies. I also have the follow-up, that being The Unnatural World. This is the sophomore album that basically still carries the same melancholic vibe of blending post-punk and shoegaze and other subgenres together. But for the most part, a lot of people kind of label this album as a doom metal album because the riffs on here just really resemble that a lot of something out of like Black Sabbath, but with the kind of like gleamy, glossy sounds of post-punk and shoegaze kind of intertwined within the doom metal riffs. That makes it really quite the standout once again by Have a Nice Life. And Dan Barrett, again, as I stated, really can't do any wrong when blending post-punk together within his work. Because tracks on here like Burial Society, which is easily the best track and the fan favorite, Wax Museum, Unholy Life, and Reunited by Faith definitely work hand in hand in blending all those subgenres together. But this album right here is really easy to get because they've always kept it in print. Again, you can get basically everything by Have a Nice Life at the Flenser. But as for the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with track listings on the top, and again, same album artwork. Comes on a gatefold, and every single vinyl pressing just comes on standard black. The final thing I have by Have a Nice Life is the latest album, that being Sea of Worry. This right here is where it kind of throws it off balance a bit for my liking of the approach that Dan Barrett does with Have a Nice Life of blending post-punk and other forms of music. Because on one hand you still have the post-punk utilized here, blending shoegaze, post-rock, and other forms of music. So I know the title track on here, he blends post-punk and surf rock together, which is quite the oddball, but instrumentally I really enjoyed the title track on this album. But the thing that really throws it off quite a bit is, while I do enjoy the instrumentals, the overall production value really misses the mark, mainly because the instrumentals are just so overblown that you really can't hear Dan singing at all. That his vocals just sound like a fainted hum as all the instrumentals are being played, and it just really ruins the mood for the album for the most part. But instrumentally, just personally, I enjoyed it. That I feel like if you're a Have a Nice Life fan overall, instrumentally and just overall with its vibe, you'll find something to really appreciate with this album. Because again, the title track, Sea of Worry, Science Beat 4, and Lords of Treasonhorn 7 are really good tracks to check out within this album. As to where you can get this, as I stated previously, the Flenser should carry every and all records by Have a Nice Life. As for the layout and packaging with this album, you have album artwork, backside comes on a gatefold, and this LP variant comes on clear with black splatter. Second to last for this vinyl collection part is actually quite the oddball just in general within my collection, because as you guys have seen with all the records I've shown in each part, a majority of them is obviously extreme metal. And because of that, their original release dates are mainly, you know, the 1980s at the earliest to mostly present day is mainly what I talk about. This right here, in terms of its original release date, is actually the oldest album that I own. Granted, it is a 2011 repress, but again, in terms of its original release date, it's the oldest, as this album was originally released back in 1958, and it's the only record I own that is within that decade. And that would be Screamin Jay Hawkins with the album At Home with Screamin Jay Hawkins. This right here is a blues album that is very dark and morbid for 1950 standards, that you can argue with Jay Hawkins' approach with how he does his singing and his overall stage aesthetics and presence, that you could say that he influenced the likes of stuff like either Alice Cooper or King Diamond, because it's just very taboo and just, you know, extreme again for 1950 standards, because it's the song on here, I Put a Spell on You. It's hard to believe something like that was released in the 1958, and it's blues music, but it's just, again, very dark for its time. And because of Jay Hawkins screaming with his singing approach, it's actually kind of heavy in some aspects, that I feel like metal fans could find something to enjoy with this record, because his vocal approach is just so over the top and loud that it's just very entertaining just overall to listen to, and overall his singing is absolutely incredible. Other great tracks on here, again, I Put a Spell on You, Temptation, Hong Kong, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is probably my personal favorite track, and If You Are But a Dream is good stuff. Again, instrumentally, it's blues music, but Jay Hawkins overall with his singing approach will definitely sell you on it. But other than that, on the backside right here, this is kind of like a biography about Jay Hawkins, and I gotta say he was quite the badass, as he grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and around his young adult life, he actually wanted to be a boxer and entered boxing tournaments and actually won a lot of them. And after the success of being a boxer, he decided to be a singer, and that's how we got Screamin Jay Hawkins right here. But yeah, again, quite the oddball, because it's the only record I could say within my collection that's just blues music. As to where you can get this, I got my copy through Discogs. There are loads of people selling this for retail price, and I'm pretty sure there's other distros out there that I'm not aware of that are selling this record. But as for the layout and packaging, as I just showed, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings and a little biography of him, and just comes on a standard black vinyl. And the final record for this vinyl collection part is going to go to the Haxan Cloak, Excavation. This is a UK-based dark ambient project, I guess, that also blends drone and noise together. That, how I look at it, dark ambient music is not a style of music that you put on to, like, you know, snap along with and tap your toes to. It's more like of a style of music that's meant to kind of create an overall mood for just your overall surroundings, I guess. Like, it's music that it's supposed to be background music that's supposed to be like unsettling or nerve-wracking in some sense. And I don't know, something about this artwork for the album just kind of speaks for itself. The overall approach of this album is it's very simplistic, but just kind of becomes disturbing, you know, with just this noose and just black surrounding it. that, I don't know, for the intentions it's trying to do for dark ambient music, of just being like this droning, noisy, unsettling background music, I find just such interest with it. And I guess maybe I'm being a fucking weirdo here, but I know for the most part when you look at dark ambient music as a whole with its very niche fan base of people who enjoy dark ambient music, the Haxan Cloak is kind of like one of the big respected figures for this style of music, and it's just overall intriguing. It's just meant to be background music that creates a certain unsettling mood that, I don't know, it's just different for most of the records within my collection. But anyway, other than that, I mean, you can easily find this on Discogs. That's where I got this copy for, you know, a decent price. And that's really it, 'cause I'm not sure if this project's still active. I haven't heard anything new from this. I think it's actually the latest album, so I know he's got previous material, but Excavation, I would say, is the album to check out if you want to get into the Haxan Cloak or just dark ambient in general. As for the layout and packaging, very simplistic with that artwork I just showed earlier. Backside with the track listings, double LP, both on standard black vinyl. And that's about it. Okay, that'll do it for this vinyl collection part. Like always, guys, links will be provided to everything I talked about in the description below, and that is that. So like always, guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and have a great day.